Alright, so when they see you rolling, and they see you hating, and walking, pulling up your pants, you get Scrafty. Okay, that was a really horrible... I'm sorry, that was supposed to be a joke, but that was actually really bad. Anyways, enter Scrafty. I'm King of Charmanders, and I'm here to hype up possibly... It's one of the most obtainable picks for the catch cut, but at the same time, it's also kind of... It's really powerful. Really powerful. However, it's just kind of, like you'll see in the Matrix, it's a Scrafty. Now, Scrafty in overall Open Great League is one of the most powerful fighters. If it doesn't, as long as this thing does not see Charmers, it wrecks a lot of things. That's the thing about Scrafty. It is a Dark and Fighting type, and it's actually pretty bulky for Great League. As you see here, its stats sport a very high defense stat, and has a very balanced stat pool. It's very like I said, very tanky. Very interesting as well. It has a very interesting moveset too. Being one of the counter, this is the only Dark and Fighting type in the game, unless you count Obstagoon, which has counter, but Obstagoon isn't a fighting type. Anyways, Scrafty is an incredibly interesting mod, and it's very powerful in Open Great League. As you see here, Scrafty is incredibly weak to fairies, so if you see Charmers, run. One notable thing that might be running around is Wigglytuff, so if you do see a Wigglytuff, run. Make sure you, run. Make sure you run away, because Wigglytuff will destroy you. It's also, ironically, it's one of the only fighting types weak to its own typing, so it's also weak to fighting type. In other words, Machamp beats you, you're a Dark and a fighting type, but you're weak to fighting, which is really weird. But, still really powerful. Also, against flying types, you are weak against flying types as well, because you have that fighting typing, like I said, very interesting and unique typing. However, what makes Scrafty really good is that Scrafty double resist Dark. As you see here, Dark only does 39%. So things like Umbreon, those Night Slashes, or anything of the Dark typing does not do heavy damage against you. So it's a very powerful mon. You also resist Ghost types, and Psychic and Rock types. Because of the fighting type and its Dark type, it has a very unique typing, and it resists a lot of relevant things. In the Catch Cup meta, you don't really resist anything notable, in my opinion. If you see single move Umbreons, then maybe, but other than that, Scrafty, there's not a lot of things Scrafty resists in this meta. Maybe Bastiodon, those rock slides from various mons, you do resist those as well. However, there's not a lot of things that Scrafty... Yeah, there's not a lot of things that she'll see. Now, Scrafty is really interesting because it has a very powerful moveset. It sports the very fast charging Snarl, the very powerful Foul Play, and it also has the best fast move in the game, in my opinion, at least overall, without sheer damage, is Counter. Counter is other than Dragon Breath is the most damaging move for sure. However, the most overall move that does a heavy amount of damage, generates a ton of energy for you, is definitely Counter. Counter is a monster combined with Power Up Punch. You can bait shields with Power Up Punch and then make your counters just chunk your opponent. And if you really want to be disrespectful, you have Acid Spray. Anyways, what makes Scrafty really interesting is that you can actually get it from the Go Battle League rewards, and you can get a Scraggy at around 1304 or 1236. In a nutshell, you only have to power it up about 4 or 5 times. So, along with that, its second move's only 50k. So, you'll spend less than 100k to build a Scrafty from Go Battle League rewards. That's really good. And you'll see Scrafty a lot at your Go Battle League encounters, just like Skarmory. So, it's something that's readily available and is very powerful. You'll be surprised just how strong this thing is in the meta. In fact, overall, it's the most powerful, it's literally the most powerful pick in the rankings, which is strange, I know, because of how fast it dies to Charmers, but you'll see in the rankings and the Matrix, we'll see just how good Scrafty truly is. Alright, so here's a custom list, custom rankings. So I have the custom rankings for Catch Cup here. You take out all the mythicals. I don't remove legendaries specifically because you can still get some legendaries if you happen to save them in your stack, so you could catch them. However, other than that, I filtered out all the mythicals from this list because if you do filter out mythicals, things do change for a meta. A Great League meta will change if you take out a certain species, especially mythicals. As you see here in the 2 shield, we have Scrafty at number 1. I know, right? I was really, like, for all the times I've analyzed this, Scrafty being at number 1 has always stunned me because look what's below it. You have 4 straight Charmers. Scrafty gets deleted by all of these. So I always wondered, how is it that strong? If you look at it, as the number 1, as literally the most powerful, the number 1 Pokemon in the Catch Cup, it takes out Zweilous, Bastiodon, Umbreon, Dugong, Ferrothorn. I don't foresee a lot of Dugongs in this meta. I also don't foresee a lot of Bastiodons because it's expensive. You can see Umbreon because Umbreon's a cheap and effective pick without having to have Last Resort. And I can foresee Zweilous if you really do invest in it. And its key losses are only to, like you see, Grottle, Torterra, so Grass Hole Lines. You also lose against Flyers, and you also lose against Machamp. So with that kind of, like, weakness, being at number 1 is very strange to me, but I can understand why. Scrafty is able to, so PvP poke factors in bait dependent moves as well. Scrafty and Power Up Punch, because you have Pup, assuming you are able to bait shields, this is why Scrafty's one of the most powerful mods, because you can bait shields and absolutely annihilate your opponent. So because it factors in bait dependent matchups, that's why Scrafty is the most powerful Pokemon for the Catch Cup. Because Scrafty is able to bait shields heavily with Power Punch. As long as you don't match up Scrafty against a counter user, it's a very, against a charm user, it's very powerful for this cup. As you see, it takes over all the Charmers of Wireless, Altaria, Dragonair, and even Bastiodon. It takes down most of the top. It takes over most of the top 20. So it's a very interesting mon, but factually by ranking, it's the most powerful mon for the Catch Cup, because like I said, it's able to bait heavily and does heavy damage as long as you stay away from Charmers. It's also readily available. So Scrafty has always been, it's very good for Open Great League. Incredibly powerful, incredibly strong, does really well as long as you can keep it away from Charmers. It's a really, really good pick for Open Great League. And it looks like because of its ability, there's not a lot of other things in this meta that can bait, or has, for example, you have Medicham, so you can have Medicham, but you need Medicham at a perfect and at level 41. That's completely unreasonable for this cup. It's like an Azumarill where you have to power it up to level 41 and then use it. That's real, like I said, that's really unreasonable for this cup. You likely already have a Medicham, that's a hundo, and that's already powered up. So you don't really need to waste all those resources doing it. Scraggy is the cheap fighter of this meta because you can get it from Go Battle League rewards. It's really good overall. As you see in the 2 shields, in the lead, it's the number 1 lead. It's also the number 1 in the 1 shield. Why? So it's the number 1 in the 1 shield because it beats Galarian Stunfisk. That's huge. So beating G-Fisk is probably one of the big reasons why. By being able to defeat G-Fisk, you can get So if hatched eggs are allowed, you can get G-Fisk from 7Ks, which is why G-Fisk is allowed. As you see, Zweilous rates very high in this cup, so being able to beat Zweilous as well as Cresselia, you can get a Cresselia. If you catch your Research Cresselia from a while ago, you can get your Grassmon Cresselia now and then use it for this cup. So there's a ways to get it. I don't foresee anybody using a Shadow Magnezone or a regular Magnezone, or even a Zangoose. Now your key losses, now this is why it's really good. Its key losses are Swampert. So Registeel, you're not going to see a Registeel in this meta. However, its key losses are against Swampert, Primeape, Dragonite, and it's just really strong and powerful overall. As you see, there's not a lot of legendaries overall in this cup to begin with, so that's why I didn't factor out like Registeel, because Registeel, even when you put in all the Pokemon together, it doesn't even rate very high. So Scrafty takes out a lot of these picks And it's very interesting to see Scrafty in the #1 position, but I can understand why. As long as you keep it away from Charmers, it is very powerful. It can bait shields, Foul Play can knock out a lot of Pokemon, and it's a really... It's not a bad mon. It also has the most bait potential because it has a very good fighter with Power Punch. So, Scrafty is incredibly powerful in the 1 shield. We'll see exactly in the Matrix to see if Scrafty really does, like, belong in the #1 spot. I can foresee a lot of Wigglytuffs running around just because it's cheap. So Wigglytuff is something you can see, even Clefable. So you can see Charmers in this cup. You can also see Azu. So if you see an Azu, Azu pretty much walls Scrafty. So there's a lot of things that can wall Scrafty, but like I said, we'll look in the Catch Cup meta to see just how powerful Scrafty truly is. Because being at the #1 spot is pretty nuts, but it's pretty reasonable because its bait potential is ridiculous, and if you do get a positive matchup, a winning matchup against Scrafty, it's bad news. Because Scrafty is just wrecks your life. Now, in the lead, in the 2s and the 1s, so basically in the lead in the switch, Scrafty's really good. In the closer, not so much. It actually ranks at number 21. So without shields, it dies to things like it dies to Swampert, Registeel. You won't see Registeel a lot. You also won't see a lot of Swamperts or Venusaurs because you won't see a lot of Elite TM Mons here. With that being said, if you take away a lot of Elite TM Mons or the possibility of them being there, there's not a lot of things that actually stop Scrafty in the closer. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to get that one crazy guy that's going to actually Elite TM one of their Mons because they're going to try hard to win. But even then, like, Scrafty still has some play. So definitely Scrafty is really good in the lead in the switch. However, in the closer, I don't know. I wouldn't actually even switch into Scrafty. I would call it a really good lead because if you lose switch, if you get locked into a Charmer, you're dead. And you'll see exactly in the Matrix just how bad it is when you get locked into a Charmer. Alright, here we go. We got Scrafty on the left. I have Counter Foul Play, Power Up, my favorite thing, which is the Matrix. And you also have the Catch Cup meta to the right. All the top meta picks we pulled from the list, and I put them in here in my own little meta file. And then here we go is the 2 shield. We're going to pull it. We pull the 2 shield, and here... Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. So, Scrafty is the #1 pick in the 2 shield. It absolutely destroys G-Fisk. It destroys Zoilis. You also even beat Shadow Swampert. And you beat Abomasnow. You beat Dragonair. You beat Skarmory. You even beat Skarmory in the 2 shield. So you beat Skarmory. You beat Vigoroth. Obviously you destroy Bastiodon. Snowy Castform. All the Charmers destroy your soul. This is why you want to use Scrafty in the lead. Because if you have Scrafty in the lead, you can pivot away from these picks. So Scrafty, beat it with Scrafty. You got Magnezone. You beat Magnezone. You lose against Shadow Gloom and I'm guessing Shadow Victory Bell just because it resists counters. But other than that, you're able to beat things like Umbreon, Obstagoon, Magnezone. I don't foresee Magnezone being around a lot. And remember I mentioned about Ozu in the 2s. Ozu in the 2s is dangerous. Be careful. You beat Mandibuzz, Wishcash Ferrothorn, and Shadow Skarmory. So you beat a lot of interesting flyers. However, the main things you lose against, like I said, Charmers, fellow fighters as well, and Altaria. So that's what makes it really interesting. I don't foresee a lot of AWACS being in the meta. Like, I don't even know how you can catch an AWAC in the... I think if there was like some research thing, you could probably catch an AWAC, but other than that, I don't foresee a lot of AWACS in the Catch Cup. So the 2 shield in scenario is really interesting because a lot of things check Scrafty. Yeah, there's a lot of things that check Scrafty. So I would lead with it because if you do get a winning lead, these ratings are very powerful. So you have really strong ratings against top meta picks. Against top meta picks and some uncommon picks, you have a strong matchup against all of them. So these aren't bad matchups like 557, 552. So you'll beat some flowers, you beat some steals, you beat a lot of things with Scrafty. Now on the 1 shield, the things get different. In 1 shield, in the 1 shield, you beat Alolan Marowak as long as you can land a Foul Play. And you bait with the pup. And then, let's see, you still lose against fires. You still lose against fellow fighters. You still get destroyed by Charmers. This is when you'll start losing against Shadow Dragonite, etc. because you don't have 2 shields. You beat Obama. You beat Vigoroth, Bastiodon, Snowy Castform, Obstagoon, Magnezones, Umbreons, Dragonites, Wishcash Ferrothorns. and Shadow Scarm. So you beat a lot of slew things. So it looks like whatever resists you, you lose against most of the time. But there is ways out. Other than that, it doesn't look like there's a lot of play with Scrafty. There's play, like, not a lot of play against its weaknesses. That's what I have to say. Like, it's, if you do encounter Scrafty, if you see a Charmer, you die. It's basically that simple. But still very strong. As you see here, these are still very strong ratings against its positive matchups. So I would say Scrafty's kind of like a 60-40 type of deal. You do well against 60% of the matchups, but very specific matchups, you absolutely just get destroyed in. Like Charmers, Altarias, etc. Here's the Closer. The Closer was the worst position, as you saw on the PV Poke rankings. You still destroy a Alola Marowak just because you foul play to death. You beat Stunfisk. You also beat Dragonair Shadow, Obama, so you still lose against fellow fighters and Charmers. There's nothing that changes that, and so does, and it looks like you also lose against like poison users. So poison, anything with poison dual typing, just because it resists your counters. So it's still very iffy. Now you beat a lot of things still. You beat a lot of meta picks, so you beat a lot of top picks as well. Wishcash, Ferrothorn. You also beat. Oh, you actually beat Shadow Vileplume at this point in the Closer, so that's fine. So this is how Scrafty is in the closing scenario. As you see, it's like a 64. You beat a lot of the meta, you don't beat all of the meta, and it's a little risky to play. Now, how about Up a Shield? Up a Shield, Scrafty does pretty well, but you still lose against things like Flyers, fellow fighters, Charmers, and you still lose against Azu, of course, even though you're Up a Shield. But this is where you'll beat Shadow Victory Ball, so it looks like you'll beat a majority of the poison of the Razor Leafers if you're able to land a foul play, as you see here. Now, up 2 shields, I think Scrafty does pretty well. So Scrafty, up 2 shields, actually beats everything but the Charmers. So if they don't charm you, or if it's not Shadow Gloom, you actually... Well, I think... So Shadow Gloom's only really strong because it's bulky. That's the thing. So Scraggy is able to beat a lot of the meta unless it's Charmers or Shadow Gloom. I can't imagine things change too much once you get shield advantage. So if you're in the 2-to-1s, you'll lose against this is where you'll lose against Altaria. You'll lose against fellow fighters. You'll lose against fellow fighters now and still Charmers. That's pretty much it. And Azu. So Scrafty is still really good. It's just there's a lot of things that check Scrafty in this meta. Fighters, Flyers, and Charmers. I can foresee Flyers and Charmers being around really popular. So Scrafty is it's good, but it's not oppressive. You know what I mean? It's not something like it's not like Bronzor, where it's like it's absolutely super broken to where it's going to it's like you need one. You don't need one, but it's basically the one thing everyone's trying to kill. That doesn't happen with Scrafty. Alright, so if I had to give Scrafty a rating, I would give Scrafty I would give it a 7 out of 10. So, Scrafty is really good for several reasons. It's accessible. It's not super cheap, but it's cheap. It has very strong matchups against against its positive matchups, but that's where it almost like it's a borderline 6, and I give 6 to things that like get destroyed a lot. But there's a lot of scenarios where Scrafty can like bait shields, do heavy damage with counter, and as long as you keep it away from fighters, flyers, and charmers, you should be okay. However, like I just said, that's a lot of Pokemon you have to watch out for in this meta. Especially since since there's a lot of cheaper picks out there that can be a lot more effective. Scrafty can be if in a perfect world, yes, Scrafty does belong number 1 in a lot of scenarios. However, just for this cup, what's viable and what's not, I can foresee if you had to pick like a lot of available picks, Skarmory, Wigglytuff, that crazy person using that Azumarill, and Flyers in general are just Scrafty doesn't do well against them, and you can definitely see some Charmers being used in the Catch Cup. For the Catch Cup, you can see pretty much anything, but because Scrafty has to really be careful of so many things in this meta, it's number 1, it's the most powerful mon in the meta if if certain rules were applied. For example, you can elite TM some things, etc. So I think Scrafty does belong where it is in number 1. It's just how to play. It's just too hard to play. Because it has incredible bait potential and counter does an obscene amount of damage. Counter, foul play, and power up punch is an extremely powerful combination. So if you get a positive matchup, you'll be really comfortable. However, like I said before, Scrafty is just really tough to play because you have to watch out for so many things. Scrafty is the only fighter, like I said, that loses to other fighters, and you have to worry about Charmers and Flyers. Those are readily available in the Catch Cup, especially for like spotlight hours or just in the wild. Those are a lot easier to get. The good thing about Scrafty is that it's readily available. Scrafty's cheap, doesn't cost a lot to power up, and it can, like I said, if it gets a positive matchup, it's really strong against its positive matchups. A lot of bait potential, a lot of damage potential, and if it gathers enough power punch buffs, it will really force your opponent to shield because foul play just does so much damage. So that's where I rate it. Scrafty's definitely a 7 out of 10 because it's very powerful against its positive matches, but there's so many things you have to watch out for. That's why I can't give it anything higher than that. If you want to use Scrafty and you're very comfortable using Scrafty, I definitely would consider it. However, just be very careful of its weaknesses, like you are aware of if you play Scrafty a lot. Just because if you do see it, you need to pivot away, you go away fast. But Scrafty is very powerful in this meta. So, like I said, if you use it and you're used to using it, more power to you. If you want to use but there are better options out there. And, like I said, I only use it if you're really comfortable with using it in this meta. Or just in Go Battle League in general. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys on the next one. Like I said, Scrafty is incredibly powerful. You're used to using it, use it. If not, then there are other options out there. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. If you like this, please like and subscribe. And again, I will see you on the next video.